Okay, boys and girls, we are finally back with more countdown style videos here on Coaster Dash. I know a lot of you have missed these videos, and oh my gosh, do I have a lot of catching up to do. It was just a couple days from this video's release that I came back from the longest coaster trip of my life so far. Well, it was kind of two trips in one. You see, the first and shorter half was a whole Florida trip where we went to the parks at Disney World, Islands of Adventure, Legoland, SeaWorld, Busch Gardens, and Fun Spot 3 times. Yeah, that's a story for another video. Anyways, at the end of the trip, I flew from Tampa to JFK, New York City, and that was when the crazy East Coast trip began. We literally went from New England down to Tennessee and the Carolinas and every park in between. It was a wild adventure. So if you are interested in my experiences at each of the parks I went to throughout these two trips, I have vlogs from almost all of them up on my channel right now. But let's rewind a bit and start from the very beginning. Other than Legoland, which only has like 4 coasters and therefore isn't eligible for its own countdown video, we kicked things off at the Walt Disney World Resort. Day 1 was spent at Hollywood Studios and Epcot, and Day 2 was Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom. The time spent at these parks were truly incredible, and while there will eventually be a video ranking the best rides at the resort, I wanted to today focus on the roller coasters. Obviously, you don't really go to Disney for the coasters, but with that being said, they do have some really fun rides that do often fall under the radar. So today, I will be bringing you guys a list of the 7 operating roller coasters at the Disney World Resort, ranked from worst to best. Note that I said operating, so Tron and Guardians of the Galaxy will not be on this list, and I'm also not going to be making Space Mountain into 2 separate spots. Yes, I'm aware that there's 2 tracks and therefore 2 credits, but I only rode one of them during my recent visit, and I think they're more or less the same anyways. But with these caveats out of the way, let's dive right into Disney World's coaster collection, ranked up from worst to best. Number 7, Barnstormer. By far, this is the smallest coaster in the resort, and to be honest, I don't remember riding this at all, but I know I have the credit because I went to the park all the time when I was like -4 years old. But this is basically just your typical Vekoma Kids coaster, very similar to Gadget's Go Coaster at Disneyland, just as an example. Not a super special ride, but a fun one for kids, that's for sure. Number 6, Slinky Dog Dash. I think this is like one of the only coasters in the entire resort not built from Vekoma. Yes, I know that sounds like a red flag, but don't worry, Disney Vekomas are actually pretty good. Anyways, this is a mock multi-launch coaster, but the absolute tamest one ever built. It's a purely enjoyable family roller coaster, but it's definitely not going to have much of a wow factor to it. Very slow launches, and you feel like you're going to valley at times, to be honest, but the theming is great, and the finale with Weezy singing at the end is absolutely amazing. But that's all you can really say about Slinky Dog Dash. Moving on. Number 5, Rock and Roller Coaster. This one will probably come as a surprise to a lot of you, but despite this being the most intense coaster in the resort, it doesn't even clock in halfway through the list. To be honest, I blame that mostly on competition with other, more highly themed rides in the park, because Rock and Roller Coaster is still a fun coaster. It basically feels like an Aerosmith themed version of Flight of Fear, only this one is a Vekoma looper and the others are premier rides. I will say though, Rock and Roller Coaster might just be the smoothest Vekoma thrill coaster I've ever been on. It runs very well, and that's honestly not something I was anticipating. Plus, combine that with some cool music and you've got a pretty well-rounded looping coaster. A fun ride, just not something that absolutely wowed me. Number 4, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. I'm sure this one is another surprise, as a lot of enthusiasts call this ride boring or too tame. For me personally, it was just enough to provide much enjoyment, and the theming was the perfect complement to this. Starting with the train design, I love what Vekoma has done here. Even if it's not the most noticeable if you're on balance, the swaying seats are a really cool touch to the ride. Also, it is probably one of the most fast-paced and energetic mine train coasters I've been on, if you even want to call it that. And best of all, I mentioned theming, but this really has some good moments of theming. There's an entire portion of this ride that's taken nice and slow, and it's basically a full-on dark ride section. There's a lot to look at there, and with the iconic Seven Dwarfs Hi-Ho music playing in the background, this really made the ride for me. A truly fantastic mine train, and I would definitely recommend it. Number 3, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. I'm honestly quite surprised by how different this one felt to the Disneyland version. I still have yet to decide which one I actually prefer, but I will say that this one was not nearly as smooth and also felt a bit more out of control. On the contrary, the Disneyland version feels a bit more predictable with the exclusion of its numerous tunnels. But what we can say about what makes both so good is that they're very long and jammed-packed with airtime laterals and cool theming. I feel like it would be difficult for a coaster, and more specifically a mine train coaster, again if you even want to call it that, to get more enjoyable than this. Thunder Mountain is truly just a rock-solid ride, and it was also a standout attraction at Magic Kingdom. Number 2, Expedition Everest. You may be surprised to see that Everest did not come out on top on the list. The ride was flat out amazing though, and I want you guys to know that the only reason it didn't clock in at number 1 was because the top spot really blew me away. But let's take a deeper look into what this coaster has to offer. Being one of the most expensive rides on Earth, costing upwards of $100 million, crazy right, Everest is a very advanced attraction. It features bunches of theming, an unbelievably beautiful Mount Everest, a mid-course switch track, a detailed Yeti animatronic, and a very unique ride system manufactured by Vekoma. It also features a very well-known section where the track goes missing and you hit a dead end, and from there you just fall backwards into darkness. This section in the darkness actually has a lot of shockingly intense and forceful helixes and weird turns and transitions. Even though I wasn't expecting that part to be the highlight of the ride, it was, and I swear the whole ride was awesome too, it wasn't just that. So yeah, it was a real treat to get on Animal Kingdom's one and only operating roller coaster. I would recommend this one to just about anyone at the resort. Number 1, Space Mountain. Now let me explain this placement because I know a lot of you are probably really confused by this. I'll admit that Everest is probably the more impressive ride, but Space Mountain at Magic Kingdom in particular really surprised me. I ended up thinking it was better than the Disneyland version, which is a pretty big statement because I also love the Disneyland one. But with that being said, they ride completely different, and here's what I mean by that. When I got off of the Omega side of Space Mountain this past visit, I described my experience as if it were an enclosed, space-themed version of Matterhorn Bobsled's Tomorrowland track. And guys, if you know me well, you know I absolutely love the side of Tomorrowland on Matterhorn. Funny enough, I immediately got reminded of Matterhorn when I saw the single file seating. I had no idea that this coaster had trains like that, but it was at that moment when I knew it would be very different from the California counterpart. But honestly speaking, the transitions, the airtime, and the turns were just taken so abruptly, and again, it really reminded me of Matterhorn, which is very similar to that. But with the added bonus of just not knowing where you're going and the really cool space theme, it enhanced the experience to another level. I'd probably call this one a personal favorite of mine after riding because I think it just blew me away more than almost any other coaster I've been on. Turns out that sometimes not knowing anything about a coaster can lead to a truly remarkable experience. What a surprise Space Mountain was. Well, there's my list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was one of the shorter ones I'll be doing from this 2-trip adventure, but I hope it was as entertaining as the others anyways. Honestly speaking, the coaster lineup at Disney World is not something to be overlooked. Yes, the dark rides are obviously going to be much more impressive, but there are some awesome roller coasters to be found here, mostly of the family genre. But yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next countdown video. Thank you for watching and take care.